The general overlooked her Barrett, 50, then stopped cold at her sniper record part. One Sarah Martinez had always been different from the other soldiers in her unit. While the men around her talked loudly about their weekend plans and showed off their muscles during training, she quietly cleaned her rifle with the same care a musician might tune their instrument. Her Barrett 50 caliber sniper rifle was not just a weapon to her, it was an extension of her soul. The morning sun cast long shadows across the military base as Sarah walked toward the shooting range. She carried her rifle case with both hands, treating it like precious cargo. The other soldiers barely noticed her. To them, she was just another face in uniform, someone who happened to be assigned to their sniper training program. General Harrison was conducting his monthly inspection of the sniper division. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to judge everything they landed on. He had been in the military for 30 years and believed he could spot talent from a mile away. As he walked past each soldier's station, he made mental notes about who showed promise and who might need additional training. When the general reached Sarah's position, he barely glanced at her setup. Her rifle was positioned perfectly, her equipment organized with military precision, but she looked so young and small compared to the Barrett 50 that seemed almost too big for her frame. The general's eyes moved quickly past her station to focus on Sergeant Collins, a muscular man who looked like he could wrestle a bear and win. "Impressive weapon, Collins," the general said, admiring the sergeant's rifle. "I expect great things from you today." Sarah heard the comment and felt a familiar sting. Throughout her military career, people had always looked past her. They saw her petite frame and quiet demeanor and assumed she was not cut out for the demanding world of precision shooting. What they did not know was that Sarah had been shooting since she was 8 years old, learning from her grandfather who had been a World War II veteran. Her grandfather had taught her that shooting was not about being the biggest or strongest person on the range. It was about breathing, patience, and understanding the weapon as if it were part of your own body. "The rifle does not care how tall you are or how loud you can shout," he used to say. "It only cares about your heart rate, your focus, and your respect for the power you hold." Sarah had taken those lessons to heart. While other soldiers rushed through their shots trying to prove their strength, she took her time. She studied wind patterns, calculated distances with mathematical precision, and never fired a shot unless she was absolutely certain it would hit its target. The training exercise that day was designed to test long-range accuracy. Each sniper would have 5 shots at targets placed at different distances, ranging from 800 yards to 200 yards. The targets were small, designed to simulate real-world scenarios where precision could mean the difference between life and death. As the soldiers prepared for the exercise, Sarah noticed the general walking among them, offering encouragement to some and advice to others. When he reached her position again, he paused for just a moment, looking at her rifle with a slight frown. "Martinez, is it?" he asked, reading her name tag. "Yes, sir," Sarah replied, standing at attention. "That Barrett 50 is a serious piece of equipment. Are you sure you can handle the recoil? It kicks like a mule, and I have seen grown men get knocked flat by it." Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. "I can handle it, sir." The general nodded, but his expression suggested he had doubts. "Well, we will see. Just remember, this is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about demonstrating the skills that could save lives in real combat situations." As the general moved on, Sarah heard some of the other soldiers chuckling quietly. She had grown, used to the skeptical looks and dismissive comments, but they still hurt. What made it worse was that she knew she was better than most of them, but nobody seemed willing to give her a chance to prove it. The first phase of the exercise began with targets at 800 yards. Sarah watched as soldier after soldier took their shots. Some hit the target, others missed by inches or feet. When it was Sergeant Collins's turn, he made a show of adjusting his rifle and taking deep breaths. His first shot hit the outer ring of the target, earning approving nods from the general and other observers. Finally, it was Sarah's turn. She approached her rifle with calm confidence, checking the wind flags and making minute adjustments to her scope. The range fell quiet as she settled into position. Some soldiers continued talking quietly, not paying much attention to what they assumed would be an unremarkable performance. Sarah controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow to a steady rhythm. Through her scope, the target looked small and distant, but she had hit smaller targets at greater distances during her personal training sessions. She squeezed the trigger with steady pressure, and the Barrett 50 roared to life. The recoil was significant, but Sarah absorbed it smoothly, her body working in harmony with the weapon. Downrange, the target showed a perfect hit in the center ring. A few soldiers glanced over, mildly impressed, but most went back to their conversations. The exercise continued with targets at 1,000 yards and then 200 yards. Each time Sarah took her shot, she hit the center of the target with precision that seemed almost mechanical. By the time the morning session ended, she had achieved 5 perfect hits, but hardly anyone had noticed. General Harrison was reviewing the preliminary scores with his aide when something caught his attention. "Martinez scored perfect on all 5 targets?" he asked, double-checking the numbers. "Yes, sir. Perfect center hits at every distance." The general frowned, looking across the range to where Sarah was carefully cleaning her rifle. "Are you certain those scores are correct?" "I verified them myself, sir. She was the only shooter to achieve perfect accuracy at all distances." For the first time that day, General Harrison truly looked at Sarah Martinez. She was methodically breaking down her Barrett 50, treating each component with the respect of someone who understood the weapon inside and out. There was something about her movements that spoke of experience and confidence that went far beyond her years of service. "Interesting," the general murmured, making a note on his clipboard. "Very interesting indeed." As Sarah finished packing her equipment, she had no idea that her perfect performance had finally caught the general's attention. All she knew was that she had done what she came to do, prove to herself, if no one else, that she belonged on that range with that rifle in her hands. The afternoon session would bring new challenges, and Sarah was ready for whatever came next. The afternoon brought a different kind of challenge. General Harrison had decided to test the snipers with moving targets in adverse weather conditions. Dark clouds had rolled in, bringing with them a steady wind that would test even the most experienced marksmen. The targets would be mechanical devices that moved across the range at various speeds, simulating enemy personnel in combat situations. Sarah noticed the general watching her more closely now, though she pretended not to see his occasional glances in her direction. She had learned long ago not to get her hopes up when superiors seemed to take notice. Too many times she had thought someone was finally recognizing her abilities, only to be passed over for assignments or promotions. The first moving target exercise required shooters to hit a target traveling at 15 miles per hour across a 200-yard span. Most soldiers would get 2 opportunities to hit the target as it moved through their field of view. The wind had picked up significantly, adding another layer of complexity to an already difficult shot. Sergeant Collins went first, his confidence evident as he tracked the moving target through his scope. His first shot missed by several feet, the bullet striking the dirt behind the target. His second attempt was closer but still failed to connect. He stood up from his rifle with a frustrated expression, clearly disappointed with his performance. Other soldiers followed with similar results. The combination of wind, distance, and a moving target proved too challenging for most of them. A few managed to hit the outer edges of the target, but no one achieved a clean center shot. When Sarah's turn arrived, she took extra time to study the wind patterns. She watched the grass move in the distance and observed how the flag at the 500-yard mark was behaving. While other soldiers had rushed their shots trying to get them off quickly before the target disappeared, Sarah understood that patience was more important than speed. She settled into position behind her Barrett 50, following the target through her scope as it began its journey across the range. Instead of firing immediately when the target entered her field of view, she tracked it for several seconds, learning its exact speed and rhythm. The target moved with mechanical precision, but Sarah needed to account for the wind that would push her bullet off course. When she finally squeezed the trigger, the shot felt different from her morning efforts. The wind resistance was significant, and she had to trust her calculations about where the target would be when her bullet arrived. The Barrett 50 thundered, and downrange the moving target jerked as the bullet struck it dead center. A few soldiers, looked up from their own preparations, surprised by the successful shot. General Harrison lowered his binoculars and studied Sarah for a long moment before making another note on his clipboard. The afternoon continued with increasingly difficult scenarios. Targets appeared at random intervals from different directions. Soldiers had to identify friend from foe based on uniform colors at extreme distances. Some targets were partially concealed behind obstacles, requiring precise shots through narrow openings. Each challenge seemed designed to push the snipers beyond their comfort zones, testing not just their shooting ability but their decision-making under pressure. Sarah approached each scenario with the same methodical calm that had served her well throughout her career. While other soldiers grew frustrated or rushed their shots, she maintained her composure. During a particularly challenging exercise involving targets at 400 yards and crosswinds, Sarah overheard two instructors talking nearby. "She makes it look easy," one said, nodding toward Sarah's position. "Too easy," the other replied. "I wonder if someone made a mistake with her background check." "You do not just show up and shoot like that without serious training." Sarah pretended not to hear the conversation, but their words brought back memories of the skepticism she had faced throughout her career. People could not believe that a small woman from a rural farming community could outshoot soldiers who had been training for years. They looked for explanations that fit their preconceptions rather than accepting that talent and dedication could overcome physical limitations. What they did not know was the story behind her skills. After her grandfather died when she was 16, Sarah had continued practicing on her own. She spent weekends at local shooting ranges, often being the only woman among dozens of men. She studied ballistics textbooks like other teenagers read, novels. She saved money from her part-time job to buy ammunition and range time. When she enlisted in the military, Sarah had hoped to find others who shared her passion for precision shooting. Instead, she found a culture that often judged soldiers based on appearances rather than abilities. Her quiet demeanor was mistaken for weakness, and her technical approach to shooting was sometimes seen as overthinking. But Sarah had learned to let her shooting do the talking. Every perfect shot was a statement that she belonged, even if others were slow to recognize it. As the day's final exercise began, General Harrison positioned himself directly behind Sarah's shooting position. This scenario involved multiple targets, appearing simultaneously at different distances, requiring the sniper to prioritize threats and engage them in the correct order. The targets began appearing, and Sarah smoothly transitioned between them. Her first shot eliminated a target at 100 yards. She worked the bolt of her Barrett 50 with practiced efficiency, chambering a new round while simultaneously identifying her next target. The second shot connected at 900 yards. A third target appeared at 1,300 yards, partially concealed behind a barrier that left only a small portion visible. Sarah took a moment longer with this shot, calculating not just the distance and wind, but the exact position of the target behind its cover. When she fired, the bullet found its mark through a gap that seemed impossibly small from such a distance. General Harrison stood watching in stunned silence. In 30 years of military service, he had seen many exceptional shooters, but never someone who combined such technical precision with such apparent ease. Sarah made shots that would challenge veteran snipers look routine. As the exercise concluded and soldiers began cleaning their weapons, the general approached Sarah's position. She was breaking down her Barrett 50 with the same careful attention she had shown all day, checking each component for wear or damage. "Martinez," the general said, his voice carrying a tone she had never heard from a superior officer before, genuine respect. "Yes, sir," Sarah replied, continuing to work on her rifle while speaking. "That was exceptional shooting today. Where did you learn to handle a Barrett 50 like that?" Sarah paused in her cleaning, considering how to answer. She had learned that simple, direct responses worked best with military leadership. "Practice, sir. Lots of practice." General Harrison nodded, but his expression suggested he was thinking about much more than her brief answer. "I would like to see your complete service record, Martinez. Something tells me we have been underutilizing your talents." As the general walked away, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. For the first time in her military career, someone in authority, seemed to be taking her seriously. She had no idea that this conversation would change the entire course of her service, opening doors to opportunities she had only dreamed about. 3 days after the range exercises, Sarah received an unusual summons to General Harrison's office. She had never been called to speak with anyone above the rank of captain, and the butterflies in her stomach reminded her of her first day of basic training. The general's office was located in the main administrative building, a place most enlisted personnel only visited when they were in serious trouble. Sarah knocked on the heavy wooden door and waited for permission to enter. The office was larger than she had expected, with military decorations covering the walls and a massive desk that seemed to dominate the room. General Harrison sat behind the desk, studying a thick file folder that Sarah assumed must contain her service records. "Please sit down, Martinez," the general said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. His tone was businesslike but not unfriendly, which Sarah took as a good sign. As she settled into the chair, Sarah noticed that the general's aide was also present, standing quietly near a filing cabinet. The presence of a witness suggested this was more than a casual conversation. "I have been reviewing your personnel file," General Harrison began, flipping through the pages. "Your shooting scores are consistently exceptional, but your assignment history is puzzling. You have been relegated to support roles and routine duties that do not utilize your obvious talents." Sarah chose her words carefully. "I serve where I am needed, sir." "That is admirable, but it is also wasteful," the general replied, closing the file and leaning back in his chair. "Tell me about your background. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Sarah had dreaded this question, knowing that her unconventional training might not impress military leadership. "My grandfather taught me, sir. He was a World War II veteran who believed everyone should know how to handle firearms properly. And after your grandfather passed away?" "I continued practicing on my own, sir. I spent most weekends at civilian shooting ranges and studied ballistics in my free time." General Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "Your file mentions that you requested sniper training 3 times and were denied each time. Do you know why?" Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks. This was territory she had tried not to think about too deeply, knowing that dwelling on past rejections would only make her bitter. "I was told that my physical profile did not meet the requirements for specialized training, sir." "Physical profile," the general repeated, his voice carrying a hint of disapproval. "You mean they thought you were too small to handle the equipment?" "Something like that, sir." General Harrison opened her file again and read from one of the reports. "Candidate shows promise but lacks the physical presence required for advanced sniper operations. Recommend assignment to support roles where her attention to detail can be utilized effectively." The words stung even hearing them secondhand. Sarah had read similar language in her performance evaluations over the years, always emphasizing her positive qualities while explaining why she was not quite right for the assignments she really wanted. "The officer who wrote that evaluation obviously never saw you shoot," the general said, closing the file with more force than necessary. "I have a proposition for you, Martinez. How would you feel about a transfer to a specialized unit that could better utilize your skills?" Sarah's heart began racing. She had learned not to get excited about possibilities that might not materialize, but this sounded different from the vague promises she had received in the past. "What kind of specialized unit, sir?" "Counter-sniper operations. We have been developing a program to train marksmen specifically for identifying and eliminating enemy snipers in urban environments. It requires exceptional shooting skills, patience, and the ability to work independently for extended periods." Sarah tried to keep her expression neutral, but inside, she was thrilled. Counter-sniper work was exactly the kind of challenging, important assignment she had dreamed about. "The training is intense," General Harrison continued. "You would be working with equipment that makes your Barrett 50 look simple, advanced optics, computer-assisted targeting systems, and scenarios that push shooters to their absolute limits." "Would welcome the challenge, sir." The general studied her face for a long moment as if trying to read her thoughts. "There is something else you should know. If you accept this assignment, you will be the first woman selected for this particular program. That brings additional scrutiny and pressure that has nothing to do with your shooting ability." Sarah had faced skepticism and doubt throughout her military career, so the idea of additional scrutiny was not particularly frightening. What worried her more was the possibility that she might fail and confirm the doubts that so many people seemed to have about her capabilities. "I understand, sir. I would not let the unit down." "I believe that," General Harrison said, standing up from his chair. "But I need you to understand what you would be getting into. This is not just advanced training. It is preparation for real-world missions where one shot could mean the difference between saving innocent lives and allowing tragedy to occur." Sarah stood as well, feeling the weight of the moment. This conversation could change everything about her military career, opening doors that had been closed to her for years. "When would the training begin, sir?" 2 weeks. You would report to Fort Benning for a 6-month intensive program. The washout rate is high. About 60% of candidates do not complete the course. Those who do graduate become part of an elite group of specialists who deploy worldwide on short notice. The general walked around his desk and extended his hand to Sarah. "What do you say, Martinez? Are you ready to show the military what we have been missing?" Sarah shook his hand firmly, meeting his eyes with steady confidence. "Yes, sir. I am ready." As she left the general's office, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness that reminded her of childhood Christmas mornings. After years of being overlooked and underestimated, she finally had a chance to prove that her skills were worth more than filing reports and maintaining equipment. She thought about her grandfather and how proud he would be to know that his lessons had led to this opportunity. He had always told her that talent would eventually be recognized if she remained patient and continued working hard. Now, finally, that prediction was coming true. The next 2 weeks would be spent preparing for the most challenging training of her military career. Sarah knew that many people would be watching to see if she succeeded or failed, but she also knew that she had already overcome greater obstacles than a difficult training program. Her Barrett 50 had opened doors that seemed permanently closed, and now she had a chance to walk through them into a future she had only dared to dream about. Fort Benning looked like a different world compared to Sarah's previous assignment. The specialized training facility was equipped with technology she had only read about in military journals. Advanced computer systems tracked every shot with precision that measured accuracy to fractions of inches. The rifle ranges extended to distances that would challenge even the most experienced marksman. Sarah arrived on a Monday morning in early spring, carrying the same rifle case that had accompanied her throughout her military career. She was one of 24 candidates selected for the counter-sniper program, and as General Harrison had warned, she was the only woman in the group. The other candidates were impressive. Most were seasoned soldiers with years of specialized training behind them. Several had already completed advanced sniper courses at other facilities. A few had combat experience that showed in the way they carried themselves and spoke about their previous assignments. During the initial briefing, Sarah learned that the training would be unlike anything she had experienced. The course was designed around real-world scenarios where counter-snipers had to identify, locate, and eliminate enemy marksmen who were targeting civilians or friendly forces. Success required not just exceptional shooting skills, but also advanced tactical knowledge, technology proficiency, and the mental toughness to make life-or-death decisions under extreme pressure. Master Sergeant Williams, the lead instructor, addressed the group on their first day. He was a compact man with intense eyes and a voice that commanded immediate attention. "Gentlemen," he began, then paused and looked directly at Sarah. "And lady, you are here because someone believes you have the potential to become counter-snipers. That means you will be responsible for hunting people who are very good at killing from long distances. They will not make it easy for you." The first week focused on advanced ballistics and technology integration. Sarah found herself working with computer systems that could calculate wind drift, humidity effects, and bullet trajectory automatically. While some candidates struggled with the technology, Sarah's background studying ballistics helped her adapt quickly to the digital tools. The real challenge came during the second week when live-fire exercises began. The targets were not the stationary circles Sarah was used to, but sophisticated mannequins that could move, hide, and even simulate return fire with laser systems. Candidates had to locate their targets using only minimal intelligence, then make successful shots while under simulated enemy fire. Sarah excelled at these exercises, but she noticed that her success was creating tension with some of the other candidates. During breaks, she overheard conversations that made it clear some of her fellow trainees resented her presence. "She should not be here," one soldier muttered to his friend during a lunch break. "This is serious business, not some equality experiment." "Did you see her on the moving target course?" another replied. "She made it look easy while Jackson couldn't even get close." Sarah pretended not to hear these conversations, but they reminded her that proving her shooting ability was only part of the challenge. She also had to navigate the social dynamics of being the only woman in a program where some people questioned whether she belonged. The third week brought urban combat scenarios that tested candidates in environments designed to replicate real cities. Buildings provided cover and concealment for both shooters and targets. Candidates had to clear structures, identify threats, and make precision shots through windows, around corners, and across rooftops. Sarah's small stature, which had been seen as a disadvantage in previous assignments, actually proved beneficial in urban environments. She could move through tight spaces more easily than larger candidates and present a smaller target when enemy fire was simulated. Her shots remained consistently accurate even when she had to shoot from awkward positions or through narrow openings. Master Sergeant Williams began using Sarah's performance as an example during debriefing sessions. When other candidates struggled with patience or rushed their shots, he would point out how Sarah took time to properly assess each situation before engaging. "Martinez understands that this is not about being fast," he told the group after one particularly difficult exercise. "It is about being right the first time. In real combat, you might only get one shot before your position is compromised." As the training progressed, Sarah noticed that her relationship with the other candidates was gradually changing. While a few remained openly hostile to her presence, most began to respect her abilities. Some even sought her advice about shooting techniques or asked to study with her during their limited free time. The turning point came during a night exercise in week 4. Candidates were tasked with locating and eliminating a target in complete darkness using thermal imaging equipment. The target was positioned over 200 yards away in a simulated building complex, partially concealed and protected by decoy heat sources designed to confuse thermal scopes. Most candidates struggled to even locate the target among the decoys and background thermal signatures. Those who did find it had difficulty making accurate shots at such distance with unfamiliar night vision equipment. After 2 hours, only 3 candidates had successfully completed the exercise. Sarah was the first to complete it. Working methodically with the thermal imaging system, she had identified the subtle differences between the decoy heat sources and the actual target. Her shot placement was so precise that the instructors initially thought their scoring system had malfunctioned. That was a textbook demonstration of how to use thermal imaging for precision shooting, Master Sergeant Williams announced to the crew. Martinez identified the target faster than anyone and made a perfect shot on the first attempt. For the first time since arriving at Fort Benning, Sarah felt like she truly belonged in the program. Her fellow candidates were no longer viewing her as an outsider who might not measure up. They were beginning to see her as someone they could learn from. The respect she had earned through her shooting was starting to translate into acceptance as part of the team. But Sarah knew that the most challenging parts of the training were still ahead, and maintaining her performance level would be crucial to completing the program successfully. As she cleaned her rifle that night, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since her first day with General Harrison. She was no longer the overlooked soldier hoping someone would notice her abilities. She was becoming the specialist she had always known she could be, one perfect shot at a time. The final phase of training arrived with an intensity that separated the truly exceptional candidates from those who had simply been very good. Master Sergeant Williams announced that the last 2 weeks would consist of live combat simulations, using specially trained opposing forces who would actively hunt the counter-sniper candidates. "Up until now, you have been shooting at targets that cooperate by staying visible," Williams explained to the remaining 16 candidates. 8 had already washed out of the program, unable to maintain the required performance standards under pressure. "Now you will face opponents who are trained to hide, move, and make your job as difficult as possible. The simulation environment covered several square miles of terrain that included urban areas, forests, and open fields. Each candidate would be given intelligence about enemy sniper activity in different sectors and tasked with locating and neutralizing the threats. The opposing forces were experienced soldiers armed with paintball weapons and sophisticated camouflage equipment. Sarah felt a familiar mixture of nervousness and excitement as she prepared for her first live simulation. This was the kind of challenge she had dreamed about when she first requested sniper training years earlier. The difference was that now she had the skills and confidence to meet it head-on. Her assigned sector included a partially destroyed building complex where intelligence indicated an enemy sniper had taken up position. The opposing force marksman could be anywhere within a 3-block area, and Sarah had to find him before he spotted her. Moving carefully through the simulated urban environment, Sarah used techniques she had learned during the past months. She avoided obvious routes and kept to shadows whenever possible. Her Barrett 50 was equipped with advanced optics that helped her scan potential hiding spots from safe distances. After an hour of careful searching, Sarah spotted movement in a 4th-floor window of a building approximately 800 yards away. The movement was subtle, just a slight shift in the shadows that might have been missed by someone less observant. She settled into a concealed position and studied the area through her scope. The enemy sniper was well camouflaged and positioned to cover multiple approach routes. Sarah realized that making a successful shot would require perfect timing and placement. If she missed or only wounded her target, he would immediately relocate and become much harder to find. She waited patiently, controlling her breathing and monitoring the wind conditions. After 20 minutes, the enemy sniper shifted position, slightly to track some movement in another part of the complex. The shift exposed just enough of his profile for Sarah to have a clear shot. The Barrett 50 fired once, and the simulation paint round struck the enemy sniper center mass. The exercise controllers confirmed the successful engagement, and Sarah had completed her first live simulation in less than 2 hours. Other candidates took much longer to complete similar exercises, and several failed entirely when they were eliminated by the opposing forces before locating their targets. Sarah's combination of patience, observation skills, and precision shooting was proving ideal for counter-sniper operations. As the simulations continued over the following days, Sarah's performance became the standard that other candidates were measured against. She completed exercises faster and with fewer missed shots than anyone else in the program. More importantly, she demonstrated the kind of tactical thinking that separated true specialists from merely good shooters. During one particularly challenging scenario, Sarah was tasked with eliminating an enemy sniper who was positioned to target a simulated civilian evacuation route. The catch was that the area was crowded with non-combatant role players, and any missed shot could result in civilian casualties that would end the exercise in failure. The enemy sniper was positioned in a bell tower approximately 1,400 yards away, with civilians moving through the area below. Sarah had to wait for a clear shot window while accounting for wind conditions and the movement of people in the background. She spent 3 hours in position, watching and waiting for the perfect moment. Other candidates might have become impatient and attempted shots that risked civilian casualties, but Sarah understood that patience was more important than speed in this scenario. When the opportunity finally came, Sarah made a single shot that eliminated the enemy sniper without endangering any of the civilian role players. The exercise controllers later said it was one of the most impressive demonstrations of fire discipline they had witnessed during the program. Master Sergeant Williams pulled Sarah aside after the exercise. "That was exceptional work, Martinez. You showed the kind of judgment and patience that separates good snipers from great ones." "Thank you, Sergeant. I just tried to remember what you taught us about taking time to make the right decision." "You did more than that," Williams replied. "You demonstrated leadership qualities that go beyond just shooting accurately. The way you handled that civilian scenario showed real tactical maturity." As the training program entered its final week, Sarah realized that she had transformed from someone who was overlooked and underestimated into a specialist who other soldiers looked up to. Her fellow candidates now came to her for advice about shooting techniques and tactical approaches. The key change was most evident during team exercises where candidates had to work together to clear complex scenarios. Sarah naturally fell into leadership roles, coordinating movements and making strategic decisions that other team members trusted and followed. Jackson, one of the candidates who had initially questioned her presence in the program, approached her after a successful team exercise. "I owe you an apology, Martinez," he said, his tone serious and respectful. "I had doubts about whether you belonged here, but you have proven that you are better than most of us at this work." "We all had to prove ourselves," Sarah replied diplomatically. "The training was designed to push everyone to their limits." "Maybe, but you made it look easier than the rest of us. That takes something special." As graduation approached, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From being overlooked with her Barrett 50 on that first day with General Harrison, to becoming one of the top performers in an elite training program, she had proven that talent and determination could overcome prejudice and preconceptions. But, more importantly, she had discovered that she was capable of much more than she had ever imagined. The shy, overlooked soldier who had walked into General Harrison's office months earlier had evolved into a confident specialist ready for the most challenging assignments the military could offer. The final graduation ceremony would mark the beginning of a new chapter in her career, but Sarah knew that the real test would come when she faced actual enemy snipers in real combat situations where the stakes were measured in human lives rather than training scores. 6 months after graduation from the counter-sniper program, Sarah found herself deployed to a conflict zone where her skills would be tested under real combat conditions. The mission briefing was unlike anything from her training simulations. Lives hung in the balance, and there would be no reset button if something went wrong. Intelligence indicated that an enemy sniper had been terrorizing a civilian population center, making it impossible for humanitarian aid to reach families trapped. In the conflict zone, medical supplies and food convoys had been forced to turn back after 3 aid workers were killed trying to reach the affected area. The enemy marksman was skilled and patient, striking from different positions and disappearing before counter-battery fire could locate him. Local military forces had attempted to neutralize the threat using conventional tactics, but the sniper's mobility and knowledge of the terrain made him nearly impossible to pin down. Sarah's commanding officer, Colonel Martinez, no relation despite the shared surname, explained the gravity of the situation during the mission briefing. "Specialist Martinez, you are being deployed specifically to handle this threat. The civilian population is running out of medical supplies and food. Every day we delay means more innocent people suffer." Sarah studied the aerial photographs and intelligence reports spread across the briefing table. The target area was a dense urban environment with multiple buildings that could provide concealment for an enemy sniper. The challenge would be locating one person among thousands of potential hiding spots while protecting herself from becoming a target. "What do we know about his patterns, sir?" Sarah asked, examining the marked locations of previous attacks. "He favors elevated positions with multiple escape routes, never uses the same location twice. Most of his shots have been between 600 and 900 yards, suggesting he is skilled but not exceptional at extreme ranges." Sarah noted that detail with interest. The enemy sniper was working within a comfort zone that suggested good training, but perhaps not the advanced capabilities she had developed during her specialized program. That might give her an advantage if she could engage him at longer distances. The deployment began at dawn 2 days later. Sarah was inserted into the area with a small support team whose job was to provide security and communications while she worked. Her Barrett 50 had been upgraded with the latest technology, including advanced optics and computer-assisted targeting systems that had not been available during her initial training. The first day involved careful reconnaissance of the area where the enemy sniper had been most active. Sarah moved through the urban environment with the patience and methodical approach that had served her well during training. She identified potential sniper positions and escape routes while remaining invisible to anyone who might be watching. The second day, humanitarian convoys were scheduled to attempt delivery of supplies to the civilian population. Sarah positioned herself in a concealed location that provided overwatch of the most likely approach routes the enemy sniper might use to target the convoy. At approximately 10 in the morning, the first convoy entered the danger area. Sarah tracked its progress through her scope while simultaneously scanning for any signs of enemy activity. The convoy consisted of 3 trucks carrying medical supplies and food, escorted by local security forces. 20 minutes after the convoy entered the area, Sarah spotted movement in a building approximately 200 yards from the convoy route. Through her advanced optics, she could see a figure moving carefully through the shadows of a 4th-floor window. The positioning and behavior matched the profile of the enemy sniper they were hunting. Sarah faced a crucial decision. She could take a shot immediately based on suspicious behavior, or wait for confirmation that this was actually the enemy sniper. A wrong decision could mean killing an innocent civilian, but waiting too long could allow the enemy to strike first. She chose to wait and observe. The figure in the window moved with the deliberate care of someone setting up a shooting position. Sarah could see him adjusting what appeared to be optical equipment and positioning himself to have a clear field of fire toward the convoy route. When the figure raised what was clearly a rifle and began tracking the convoy through his scope, Sarah knew she had found her target. The range was 247 yards according to her equipment, well beyond the enemy sniper's demonstrated comfort zone, but well within her capabilities. Sarah controlled her breathing and calculated the shot carefully. Wind conditions were favorable, and her position provided a stable shooting platform. The enemy sniper was focused on the convoy and appeared unaware that he was being hunted. The Barrett 50 fired once, its thunderous report echoing through the urban landscape. At 247 yards, Sarah's bullet found its target with the precision that had made her the top graduate of the counter-sniper program. The enemy sniper was eliminated instantly. His threat to the civilian population ended. The humanitarian convoy completed its mission successfully, delivering critical supplies to families who had been cut off from aid for weeks. Word of the successful operation spread quickly through the military command structure, reaching all the way back to General Harrison, who had first recognized Sarah's potential. 3 weeks later, Sarah received new orders transferring her to an elite special operations unit that specialized in high-value target elimination. The assignment came with a promotion to staff sergeant and recognition as one of the military's premier counter-sniper specialists. General Harrison personally delivered the news during a ceremony at her new assignment. As he pinned the new rank, insignia on her uniform, he spoke quietly so only she could hear. "Remember that day on the range when I almost walked past your station without giving you a second look?" he asked. "Yes, sir, I remember. I learned something important that day about the danger of judging soldiers by appearances rather than capabilities. Your record speaks for itself now. 37 confirmed eliminations of high-value targets, 0 civilian casualties, and a reputation as one of the finest marksmen in the service." Sarah thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From being the overlooked soldier with the Barrett 50 that seemed too big for her frame, to becoming a specialist whose skills were requested for the most challenging missions, she had proven that dedication and talent could overcome any obstacle. But more than personal success, Sarah had opened doors for other soldiers who might be overlooked because they did not fit traditional expectations. Her achievements had changed how the military evaluated potential snipers, placing greater emphasis on accuracy and tactical thinking rather than physical appearance. As the ceremony concluded and Sarah prepared for her next assignment, she carried with her the lessons learned from every person who had doubted her abilities. Each perfect shot had been a statement that excellence could come from unexpected sources, and that the quiet soldier in the corner might be exactly the person you need when precision and patience matter most. The Barrett 50 that had once seemed too large for her small frame had become an extension of her will, a tool that transformed potential into performance and doubt into respect. Sarah Martinez was no longer the soldier people overlooked. She was the specialist they called when failure was not an option.